What's up, you guys? All right, tonight we're getting into a big one. There's a few reasons why I'm making this video. The first reason is because this is the most common way I see people stay stuck, and in this one, if you don't put in the effort, you could stay here indefinitely, like a whole lifetime, and I don't want that for you. But I see it happen. That's why I'm here making these videos intentionally for you guys, so you don't have to stay stuck in this. The second reason I'm making this is because this is one of the most challenging patterns that I've personally had to work through and supported people through. There is light at the end of the tunnel. I promise, there is. The third reason I'm making this video is because most of you guys have been here since the beginning. And you know that I started this channel talking about twin flames. And by the way, we're still talking about that. I've changed my terminology intentionally, because I feel that the way that I speak about this now is attracting people who are ready to receive what I'm here to deliver. And also, unfortunately, what happened, and by the way, the Magdalene manuscript, that's what that book is about. That is the relationship that Tom Kenyon is in with his partner Judy, but they don't use that term. They use the term sacred relationship. So there are a lot of us out here. This is very real. There's two people, real life relationship stuff going on. That's not a fantasy. It's not unrealistic. It's not twisted and dysfunctional and narcissistic or any of that shit, you guys. Where there's drama, there's unhealed trauma. Where it's hysterical, it's historical. Now, what unfortunately happened, and again, that's why I'm making these videos, especially this one, is that a lot of the people that caught on to this term, because remember, when I started, if you've been here since day one, there was barely anything on the internet about this. Every video I made came from my own meditations and from my real life relationship experience with someone else, not from my imagination, not from a fantasy, real. So what happened was, it wasn't mainstream then, and then people started catching on, but people didn't keep healing. And so a lot of people that caught on to this term twin flames, and they started making videos, and people can only take you as far as they've gone. If a person doesn't have any context in a real relationship with a person who's equally as interested in them, who's on board with this, how can they teach it to you? People can offer you what they can offer you, but I think a lot of people just hooked into the term, but because they had so much unresolved trauma, they projected their trauma into this term, and then it got into the zeitgeist and turned into this insane, unrealistic, oh, it's perpetual suffering and you're going to be magnetically attracted to a person that you're never going to be able to be in a real relationship with that's healthy. You guys, it's not true. It's not true. But like I said, I think very few people went deep enough into their healing to experience real life transformation that was positive, so they don't have any context to share with you. They don't know what's possible because they haven't experienced it. But I do. So I'm here to tell you, come back. There's nothing fake about this. It's that you have to do a lot of the inner. This is the most work. I am not going to even sugarcoat it, you guys. This is the most work I've ever fucking done in my entire life. It's the most rewarding. There are so many blessings that have come as a result of this path, including finding my teacher and finding a Buddhist community and evolving my spiritual practice so much and continuing to do that. That is part of this path for me. But I don't feel that would have happened if I hadn't been devoted for so long before then. And I'm sure that's past life karma. It's coming back around, good seeds. But I'm just saying, in this life, this path is amazing, you guys. It's very challenging. It can feel really painful sometimes, but it's not meant to be painful forever. And by the way, love is not pain. Trauma is pain. When a wound is inflamed and then we keep feeding it, that hurts. But love heals. Love is freedom. Love is the most powerful thing we have available, and union, the technology of union, remember, it's the opposite of separation consciousness or the opposite of divisiveness. Union is a powerful technology to change the world. Why do you think I'm sitting here in my meditation for the last 6 months, and I've got Mary Magdalene and Yeshua, I've got a picture of them on my altar, and I call Mary Magdalene into every meditation, and I just kept hearing over and over, come back, call people back, help them to continue. We're not meant to be stuck in this shit forever, you guys. If you desire union, it's because it is your path. But you have to keep going. You have to commit to this over and over. You're going to have to recommit over and over and over. It is like that. It's so challenging because it's going to trigger and illuminate every barrier that you've created and try to create to block love. It's like that Rumi quote, we're not here to search for love, we're here to dissolve the barriers to love. And that is what we're doing. But I'm speaking from real life experience. This is not fake, it's not a fantasy, it's real. So trust the people that are living it, actually, you know? If you're here, trust your intuition and trust your discernment. I mean, you guys have your own judgment of character. I consider myself a very like normal, emotionally grounded, stable person, right? And I really want you to continue so that you can experience the kind of love you're really meant to experience and experience the type of relationship that you're really meant to experience. But it's not going to happen when you just snap your fingers. You're going to have to put in the work. Okay, so with all that said, I've tried to make this video so many times and my throat blocked up, so but I'm committed. All right, if you're in a situation here, and by the way, there are no villains in this story. There are no bad guys, there are no victims. You are not a victim here. If you're experiencing breadcrumbing, hot and cold behavior, and this back and forth, you're co-creating it with another, I'm sure, very kind, beautiful person. You're both afraid of intimacy, you've both got this abandonment wound, and you're co-creating it together. That's what's happening, okay? So you've got to really take responsibility. You can't play the victim here. You can't blame. Like, you've got to take complete ownership, because I'm telling you guys, because I know I'm living it, the more that you transform this, the other person doesn't have to be actively involved even in your life. The more you transform this within yourself, your world is going to change, your connection will transform, things will change, but like, it happens in you. So but again, this hot and cold, this breadcrumbing and never fully committing but never fully leaving is the ultimate trap if you've got a fear of intimacy. Because you could stay here indefinitely because you're getting some of your needs met. Because when that intermittent reinforcement comes in and you get like a blast of affection or attention or love or whatever it is, you get hooked into that and then you just want more. Because you're looking for it outside of yourself. That's the first issue. You're sourcing it out there and you've got to self-source. Like, you've got to be connected. That's why I have a spiritual practice. Because I understand that I can never be abandoned. I can only self-abandon. If people leave, the love didn't come from the person. That's not, love doesn't come from out there. Like, we are love, and we source love universally, not from a person. So if a person leaves, it doesn't mean anything about you. And it's not that love is leaving. That's like the big illusion. That's why I became a Buddhist, so I could really get into that. But anyway, that's for a different workshop. What I want to talk about today is this pattern of when they won't fully come in, but they won't fully leave either. So you're just in this like emotional purgatory. And I will say, the longer you enable this pattern to continue, the more that it takes its toll on you. It will erode your self-esteem. It starts to erode your faith in love. And it's not true. Like, again, love is not suffering. When your trauma is inflamed, it creates pain. When your mind is playing tricks and you're believing things that are not true, like false beliefs about what love is and what love isn't, well, that creates suffering. But ultimately, love is not painful. Love is so powerful. Take it back to the beginning, always in a dysfunctional pattern. Go back to the beginning. Go back to mom and dad or your caregivers when you were growing up. If you grew up in an environment where you felt like you had to work really hard to earn someone's love or earn someone's attention, and it's like no matter how hard you worked, it was never enough to secure their love, then guess what? It's not rocket science. You repeat it. And this looks usually like becoming insanely attracted to people who are hard to get, who are a challenge, or who are unavailable in some way. So these people could be like single, they might be in like a bunch of situationships, or they might even be in another relationship. And same for you. You could be single, you could be in situationships, dating around, or you could be in a long-term relationship and now it's a third-party situation on one or both ends. And you're going back and forth like this. Again, these are all ways to not feel that core abandonment wound. Because what are you really afraid of here? Most people are really afraid that they're going to offer themselves up in a loving relationship and then they're going to be left alone, that the person will leave or they'll be disappointed or they'll pull that love away, and then you start to feel like, oh my God, I'll never love again, or this is the only person that I can love like this, and if this person leaves, well then I'm completely fucked for the rest of my life, so then I'm not going to ever get to the point where I have to feel that deep fear of them leaving permanently. But if that's your biggest fear, then you're going to have to face it. It is what it is. I had to get to that place, and then what I had to do was allow that wound to fully expose itself, and I had to be alone, completely cut contact and be undistracted. Like, I'm talking lucid, sober, no dating, no men, no liquor, no sugar, no numbing out, no nothing. Like, I was like, I'm going to be completely lucid, and then I'm going to grieve. And I'm going to grieve the scariest thing. That deep pit of rejection. Like, if I leave, they'll go do this with someone else. And sometimes they will. And you, again, it doesn't mean that that's love. But it's like, what are you afraid of here? Because you're clinging to this because you're afraid of something. So what is the fear? For me, it was like, this person will leave forever and I'll never love again. That was like that's what my mind was saying. And so then when I finally let this person leave, and then I left and I stopped engaging and I cut all contact, and I was like, nope, I'm just going to sit in this pain. Guess what? Not only did the pain eventually, I'm not saying it completely goes away. I'm saying you get to the point where you're not afraid anymore. You're not afraid to be alone, because you are alone. And then when they leave you alone, you're like, I was like, oh my God, I'm still here. Now, you guys, I got some support. I didn't do this all alone. Some of it I did alone, and some of it I got support, and I hired a coach or mentor. I booked sessions. Like, I didn't just do it by myself. This was really challenging, because this is like you're breaking an addiction. It is actually to your brain, because when you get in these patterns of like intermittent reinforcement, and you guys can Google this, go look at psychologists and people that study this stuff, and they talk about how the intermittent reinforcement of coming back and forth, of getting a little bit of affection and then they pull away and it's back and forth, it creates, like it activates receptors in your brain that are as strong as like if you're trying to like kick drugs and stuff. So you have to understand that that's what you're doing. You like, to unravel a pattern like that, you're going to have to be persistent and really devoted to going all the way through this, which means you're going to have to grieve. You're going to have to feel the things that you're trying to avoid feeling. I'm not saying you have to be there forever, that it's going to last years and years, but like in my case, this has been a very slow burn. And I think it's because I'm actually here committed in this lifetime to unraveling as many patterns and blocks to love that I can. And I had way more than I realized. We all do. Some more than others, I guess. But like I said, most people, even when they're in what appears to be a loving relationship, it's still a very conditional relationship. They're not actually there in unconditional love. They might think they are, but most people are not. And that's okay. You know, this isn't everyone's path. But back to this pattern, you know, keeping you on a thread, and again, they're not the bad guy, but it's usually like one person chasing more and maybe one person like coming and going more. But you have to understand that you're both like afraid. You're both unavailable, or you wouldn't be attracted to this. In fact, the more that you stop being afraid to be abandoned and you just stop self-abandoning through patterns like this, and you start showing up consistently and choosing yourself every single day, this becomes unappealing. You actually don't want to engage in this anymore. In fact, you become like, it starts to give you the ick, because you're like, you realize this isn't love. This is going to be painful, and this shit is indefinite suffering. No thanks. But like I said, you have to become available to the love that you want, and this will meet some of your needs. Like I said, it's like having an emotional affair. You know, like some people are in a relationship and then they're like emotionally, like they might not be physical with another person. Let's say it's a third party situation. Let's say like you're married and then you start talking to one of your person at work or something. It happens all the time. Like people at work, you start having like an emotional affair with someone at work, and all of a sudden you're texting, you're sharing all your intimate thoughts and this and that. You're not like hooking up, you're not being physical, but the emotional intimacy is an affair, and it's like a betrayal of the connection that you're in because you're going elsewhere to get that need met. And especially if you're hiding it and all that. But guess what? You're getting a need met. So even though it's not the whole thing, well, if you wanted the whole thing, you would get a divorce and then you would be alone or whatever you needed to do to then transition into a healthy relationship. But because people have deep fears of abandonment, they'll stay in the dysfunctional relationship or the marriage. They'll cheat, they'll have affairs, physical, emotional, or all of the above. But then it's like, none of those situations are you truly available for like a healthy, committed partnership. So again, we've got to get to the root of these patterns. If this person is, because typically what happens is that like they'll come in maybe hot and heavy at first, and then you get excited and you're like, oh my God, they're really into me. And they probably are genuinely really into you. And so they come in hot and heavy, you get excited, you're like, okay, they want to be in a relationship with me. So maybe you start to get into the relationship, and then all of a sudden, the second you want something more, you're like, okay, I'm ready for the next level. They're like, no, don't put pressure on me. I'm not ready. And then maybe they ghost you, or they contract, they withdraw some of their attention. They start disappearing on you, or all of a sudden they're not available, and they're, you know what I mean? They start dissolving into thin air. You're like, where are you going? But then so at that point, maybe you're like, okay, if you go back and forth a few times in that and it gets really painful and frustrating, you're like, all right, you know what? I accept it. You're not available for the relationship. You're not ready yet. That's okay. I'm not going to punish you for it. I'm going to withdraw from this completely. And then I'm going to either be alone for a little bit, or I'm going to move on and this is like if you're on a dating app. This is not a dating app, but I'm just saying, imagine that you're on the dating app and the person that you're texting like just isn't responsive or whatever the case may be, and you get frustrated or bored and you're like, all right, this isn't working out. That's okay. Good luck. I hope you find what you're looking for. And then you just move on. Well, in these types of situations, the second you do that, the person feels that you're leaving because they have an abandonment wound. They're like, no, don't go. And all of a sudden you're getting a message. All of a sudden you're getting a breadcrumb. All of a sudden they're hooking back in because they feel you leaving. And they're so terrified to feel the abandonment as well that that's when they come swooping back in. But they may only swoop in for a minute. A tiny breadcrumb. Like, we're so clever because we all know how to manipulate to get what we want. It doesn't make you a bad person. It means if the only way that you've ever gotten your needs met was through like dysfunctional, manipulative behavior, well then guess what? All of this is a form of control because you're both like struggling to be in control and you're letting control kind of run the show. But love is not control. Like, you have to surrender control to actually be in a deeply loving relationship. And so, you guys, it's such a mind fuck, right? I'm tired of even talking about it, but I really wanted to make this video for you guys because I know how many of you are struggling with this and how the mind fuckery that it plays with you to the point where you start, like I said, gaslighting yourself into thinking there's something wrong with you, that you don't deserve love, that you're never going to be loved. It's not true. But it's like the minute you start to go away, this person freaks out and then they're back. But again, they know exactly what to say to get your attention again. They might say the one thing you've been waiting for them to say. Maybe you've been back and forth for ages and then one day they're like, I love you. But it's all, you're walking out the door, you've got 1.5 feet out the threshold and they're like, I love you. And then you're like, and then maybe you go back into it. Which is why for me to break this cycle, I had to stop. There was no contact. It was like I had to actually go cold turkey, radio silence. And that wasn't quick, you guys. It lasted for years. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm not saying it will last years for you. I'm saying that for me, because I was just navigating this like, it was like a free-for-all. I'm like, I'm just gonna learn as I go. Now, the good news here is that once I was like willing to sit in that fear of being abandoned, this person, like my fear, this person's gonna never come back. Like once I finally cut it off, they're never gonna come back. Okay, face the fear, sit with it. Another fear, like when I leave and I'm not engaging in this anymore, they're going to go find someone else to engage in it with. Well, they might. So then it's like sit in that fear or sit in that rejection wound and feel that. It's not reflective of your deservedness. It's a fear. It's a wound that we keep reenacting. So every single thing that I was afraid of, I sat in it, but I didn't sit in it distracted. I was like, I'm going to do this completely sober, lucid, no dating, no men, no dating apps, no alcohol, no numbing out with sugar, food, or whatever the fuck you numb out, porn, sex, I don't fucking know, Netflix, scrolling at Instagram for 6 hours, whatever. Whatever your form of escape, eating a pint of ice cream, eating bags of chips, I don't know, whatever. Whatever you numb out with to not feel, I was like, no, I'm doing this lucid. I'm going to feel it all the way because it's the only way through, you guys. Whatever your biggest fear is, that's the thing you've got to face. Now, ironically, when you're brave enough to face these fears, what often happens 99% of the time, is that the pattern starts to transform, and then things start to get better. And whatever you're afraid of, you stop recreating it because you're not as afraid anymore. And once I made it through that portal, which was very difficult, I'm not going to lie, it was really painful. And then I was like, I'm alive. I didn't die. I'm still here. It doesn't mean it didn't hurt, and it doesn't mean like all the feelings go away completely or that you don't feel any pain whatsoever, because we're human. But like, it doesn't hook you like it used to. And that's great, because if you want to create a functional connection, even if it's with that person, then you're going to have to blow through these lessons. You're going to have to burn through this stuff. And it's really sticky. Because like I said, the second you're out the door, you're like almost gone. Typically that person will find a way to get your attention. Or you make a boundary and then you're like, I'm going to hold the boundary, like no contact. And then all of a sudden they're trying to get your attention again. Maybe they send you a message. Maybe you get an indirect message through a friend or something. Maybe there's other ways that they get your attention. But it's like your boundary might get tested a few times because they're like, are they seriously leaving? Well, let me try and see if they're serious about it. And then you have to be serious. You have to hold your boundary because you have to break the cycle. Once the cycle sort of dissolves and something new can start, a new cycle can begin, a healthier cycle, then things can transform. But there's no like black and white manual to this, you guys. A lot of it I did intuitively. I had to use my discernment. Sometimes I booked a coach or a session and got someone else's feedback. Again, do it selectively, because I think when you start to get into this type of like sacred relationship stuff, first of all, people can make a lot of excuses to do really dysfunctional shit, so I'm not recommending that. At the end of the day, a lot of what I had to do here would be what a therapist would tell you to do when you're breaking like a codependent relationship or something like that. So it wasn't like some big woo-woo spiritual whatever. It was just breaking these habits, you know, and not being afraid anymore to be left alone or to be replaced by someone else. When you stop being afraid of it, it stops running your life. And so, but this is absolutely addictive. Like your brain literally gets wired just like it's on heroin or something, and go Google it. Like I said, psychologists have studied this, and they said with intermittent reinforcement, you literally go through withdrawals when the attention is pulled away and you're waiting for the next hit, and you only need a tiny little hit to get hooked back in for however long. And if you grew up starving for affection and love and you didn't get it, then you can not thrive, but you can live a long time on breadcrumbs, an entire lifetime. Some people settle for this their entire lives. Some people do it like this, not fully in relationships. Some people get married and they're in a relationship like this where they're still being breadcrumbed in the marriage. You're with the person, you've signed a paper and put a ring on your finger like, oh yeah, this is the one, and you're starving. You're starving in the relationship. It doesn't matter. Paper and a fucking ring don't mean anything, you guys, unless your intention is there. It's your devotion that matters. So, really, that's the video, you guys. I mean, this is a way to get some of your needs met, but it is a trap. And to really break this pattern, you're going to have to stop abandoning yourself. This is a form of self-abandonment. You're so afraid the other person's going to abandon you. No one can actually abandon you. They can walk away, but the love is not coming from the person. You are the love. You source the love, universal love. You don't get love from people, things, or whatever. It doesn't come from out there. That's the illusion. That's why I became a Buddhist. I was like, I need logic and tools to analyze this so that I know that, like, I want to go so deep into this and try to prove that it's incorrect so that I can understand, like, yeah, love doesn't come from out there. And I already believe it doesn't come from out there. If it did, then again, go back to my last video with the song example. If love came from that person and they were the only way that you'd experience love, every person in the world would have the same experience you're having of them at all times, and it would never change. But we know that it changes because you meet someone, you're in love with them, you're obsessed with them. You break up, you think they're the worst. It's like, what changed? If the love was coming from them, why didn't it stay the entire time the same? Change because it's coming from you, your perception, your experience is coming from you. So when you understand the love doesn't come from them, it already resolves a lot of this because you understand, what am I afraid of? You're afraid to feel the feelings that are associated with this like mental habit, but you've got to face the fear head on. And you've got to start filling your cup, and you have to start showing up for yourself consistently. So when I finally was like, I've got to have no contact and go basically cold turkey and just ride this out, and I had to ride that out for years before I experienced more transformation with all of this. But like, then I stopped being afraid of being abandoned by this person. And once you're not afraid of that anymore, it doesn't mean you want it to happen. It just means it's not running your life anymore. So things can evolve. And I had to then create rituals and practices. Like I said, that's when I started to meditate every day. That's when I amped up on my embodiment practices, my self-care practices, my little rituals, my sensuality practices, my intimacy, self-intimacy or self-pleasure practices, and things to fill my cup. Because I was like, it's not coming from them, therefore I need to radiate this love and confidence from within myself. As I do that, it will become very magnetic for a different kind of energy to meet me. And it will likely be in that connection that you're in. But if that connection isn't transformed, you've got to seriously look at your behavior with a fucking fine-tooth comb and be like, what do I not want to see here? Because if you're doing this work and you're truly doing it, things are going to transform and they're going to get better. Slowly but surely. It keeps evolving. So just understand, like, the more that you face your insecurities, the more that you show up for yourself, you're going to build your confidence back. This will start to actually turn, this pattern, not the person necessarily, the pattern will turn you off. It will not hook you. It will not be appealing. You will not want to participate in it. In fact, you're going to be like, I actually can't do this anymore. I literally can't do it anymore. That's a good sign. Because remember, real intimacy means risk. It does. It's very exposing, but that's the price we pay to have a secure attachment. Like, we have to risk getting hurt, but we have to understand that the love isn't coming from out there. And when we finally get that and we let that land, then you stop being afraid. And then you can truly love people because you're not holding them hostage. You're not putting them on a pedestal. You're not putting all your hopes into this one person. And once you take that pressure away, then love can actually bloom. So again, and when you're going from this kind of drama to actual, like a secure relationship, like, it can still be passionate and there can still be chemistry, but some of it might feel like a little boring almost because it's not drama. And when you're used to this like really toxic kind of drama and people putting pressure on you to do things and giving you ultimatums and holding you hostage and getting you by the neck and you can't leave me, you've got to say, and you think that that's the way to be in a relationship or to secure a connection, when you stop doing all of that stuff, you might be like, wait, I'm bored. Or like, is this love? It might feel weird, because the chemistry was actually just the drama. But I promise you guys that you can be in a very polarized, like, chemistry-filled, beautiful, passionate connection. You can cultivate that in this type of situation, but you've got to get out of these cycles first. And you've really got to create that energy within yourself. You guys, I have programs for this. All the links are below. If you want my support in a 90-minute call where we can start to get into this personally for your individual situation, book a 90-minute intuitive session. Those are below. You can do the Vow and Fully Claimed audio bundle, or 2 audios. It's only $39. That's if you're on the threshold of viewing and you really want to start to fully devote yourself to this path, which you're going to have to be so devoted. You can do the Return to Venus embodiment program, which is going to help you ground your nervous system, your body, and, like I said, start to show up for yourself so you're not attracting this pattern. Again, all the details are below. Return to Venus, that's for women only, 5 weeks self-paced. And yeah, anything else that's going on is below, but those are the 3 things that I would recommend for now. And again, there's light at the end of this tunnel, you guys. I love you. I will see you again in the next one very soon.